Let's talk about something that's on a lot of people's minds, but maybe not talked about enough: gaining more control during sex. It's a really common goal, and today we're going to break down how it's not just possible, but totally manageable once you have the right tools and understanding.
Okay, let's just get this out on the table right away. Somewhere between 20 and 30% of men deal with what's called premature ejaculation. So if this is something you're thinking about or dealing with, the first thing you need to know, and I mean really know, is that you are not alone. Not by a long shot.
So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to define what we're actually talking about. Then we'll dive into some hands-on techniques for your body and some really powerful strategies for your mind. We'll also touch on medical options and wrap up with what might just be the most important piece of the entire puzzle: communication. First things first, what exactly is premature ejaculation? Getting a clear definition is so important because you really can't start managing something if you don't fully understand what it is. You see, when doctors look at this, it's not just about a stopwatch. It's really a combination of three things. Number one is timing, often happening in about a minute or so. Number two is that feeling of having a lack of control, like you can't hit the brakes when you want to. But number three, and this is absolutely crucial, is the personal distress it causes, that feeling of frustration or stress. It's the mix of all three that truly defines it. And this quote from the NHS just nails it. It brings it back to what really matters. Beyond any clinical time frame or definition, the real question is simple. Are you and your partner satisfied? That personal feeling is the bottom line. It's what counts.
Okay, so let's get into the practical stuff. In this next part, we're going to walk through some physical techniques you can actually practice to build that body awareness and get more control.
So this is the classic, the OG method, the stop-start technique. The idea here is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly effective. You engage in stimulation, either by yourself or with a partner, until you get right to that edge, that point of no return. And then you just stop completely. You let that intense feeling die down a bit, catch your breath, and then you start again. By doing this over and over, you're literally retraining your brain and body to recognize what that edge feels like and how to step back from it.
Now, building on that same idea, you've got the squeeze technique. It starts out the same exact way. You get close to that point of climax, but instead of just stopping, either you or your partner gives a firm squeeze right at the tip or the base of the penis. What this does is it physically helps to halt that ejaculatory reflex. Think of it as a more active way of hitting the emergency brake. Okay, now this is a real game changer that so many people just don't know about: your pelvic floor muscles. You have these muscles that are directly involved in controlling ejaculation. So by doing exercises like pelvic rocks or bridges, you're strengthening them. It's kind of like going to the gym, but for your control muscles. And a stronger muscle means, well, more control. All right, so we've covered the body, the hardware, if you will. Now let's switch gears and talk about something that's maybe even more powerful: the software. We're talking about strategies for your mind, because so much of our physical response is driven by what's going on in our head.
And that leads us to this huge question. What if the real control panel isn't in your body, but between your ears? Think about it. Performance anxiety, stress, that stuff floods your system with adrenaline, kicking in that fight or flight response, which can actually make you ejaculate faster. So let's talk about how to win the mental game.
This right here is so powerful. It's called cognitive reframing, and it's all about changing that script that's running in your head. So instead of that panic thought, "Oh no, I'm losing control," you consciously swap it with something like, "Okay, this is a chance to just be present right now." You're not just being optimistic. You are actively calming your nervous system down. You're rewiring your brain to go from a state of panic to a state of presence. And that mental toolkit has even more tools. Anchoring to your breath, just taking slow, deep breaths, sends a direct signal to your body that you're safe, that you can relax. Visualization is like a dress rehearsal for your mind, preparing it for success. And sensate focus? That's about taking the goal of orgasm completely off the table and just focusing on sensation. All of these things help take the pressure off and put you back in the driver's seat.
So we've covered the body, we've covered the mind. Now let's take a quick look at what medical science has to offer as another piece of the puzzle.
When it comes to medical treatments, there are basically two main avenues. First, you have topical anesthetics, things like lidocaine sprays or creams. You apply them before sex, they reduce sensitivity a bit, and studies show they can increase time by anywhere from, say, 4 to 6.5 minutes. The other option is oral medications like SSRIs. One of their common side effects is delayed ejaculation, so in this case, a side effect becomes the main effect, and they can increase time by a similar amount. But of course,
Like with any medical option, there are always trade-offs to consider. The topical stuff can sometimes reduce sensation for you or your partner. And SSRIs, because they affect your whole system, can come with other side effects. This is always a conversation to have with a doctor to see what's right for you.
You know, none of these techniques, not the physical ones, the mental ones, or the medical ones, exist in a vacuum. And that brings us to our last section, which honestly might be the most important one of all, the power of communication.
And this quote just says everything, doesn't it? You can practice all the techniques in the world, but if you and your partner aren't on the same team, you're missing the entire foundation. Talking about it openly turns it from a secret, personal struggle into a shared goal. That alone can take off so much pressure, which is a massive part of the solution.
So how do you even start that conversation? Well, it's about making it a safe space, where there's no blame or judgment. It's about using I feel statements instead of you always. It's about really listening to what your partner is saying. You don't have to solve it all in one talk. Just opening that door is a huge win. And that brings us to one final thought. After looking at all these different strategies, I want to leave you with this question. What's the real goal here? Is it just about making the clock run longer? Or is it maybe about using this whole journey as a chance to build more trust, more intimacy, and a deeper connection with your partner? Thinking about that, well, that can change everything.